got one more layer I want to throw onto this, but we can prep that how you want.
I got you. And I also have a question anyway. So, and I do want to know about that hoodie because I need that.
Wow, yo, oh my Lord.
Dude, my life is a lie.
They let it talk down when I'm not around, yeah. It's only tied down when I'm out of town, no. I don't trust many when I'm in the city. I never been a shooter, but I keep them with me. Watch them steal the style and say they inspire. Bitch, I been a boss who wanna get higher. They let it talk down when I'm not around.
What's good, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Talk Down. It's Ryan here with Juan, and today we're joined with Rebecca.
Yes, the very bilingual Rebecca Blake Thompson.
Hola, ¿cómo estamos?
Rebecca is a journalist, activist, right? Can we say that?
Yeah.
Are there any other titles you want me to plug?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm a speaker, I'm a writer, I'm an activist, I'm a mom, I'm,
Wonder Woman.
just trying to be a good human.
Yeah, no, and she definitely is. And Rebecca and I have known each other for a while through our actual professional careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always kept an eye on Rebecca because Rebecca's always, I remember when I worked with you, didn't you have your own eggs? Like, didn't you have like your own chicken or something like that?
Yeah.
And from that point on, I was like, man, somebody that really goes out of the way to like not shop at a supermarket to go get this and does it herself. Like, there's something going on there that they're more enlightened. That they're more aware of what's going on. So as I've been looking at you and I feel like we're going to talk about your transition in your career.
Mm-hmm.
But the title that I think that is the best, and you have it on your Instagram, is your ethical fashion warrior, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
So let's let the viewers go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into it.
Yeah, you kind of have to be a warrior to take on the system, right? It's not for the faint of heart. Juan and I, when you and I were together professionally, we were in what I call, kind of the business as usual of fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And that means like a fashion model that's super focused on constant consumption, constant sales, constant newness, like just always bringing out new stuff, selling it, moving through it at a pace that's like really crazy, right? If you think about like our actual need to like clothe our bodies, compared to like what we're sold we need, through marketing and advertising and things like that. So, I was involved in the, business as usual in fashion for almost a decade. And just through curiosity, which is something that we're going to dive into on this call, just through like a curiosity of like what else is going on like behind the scenes here, like what's really happening when all this stuff like goes away. Where does it go? Where does it come from? Where does it go? Like, what does all this mean? I just started doing my own research and looking into what's often coined as the true cost of fashion, so that can mean the true cost environmentally. It can mean the true cost, like, from an ethical standpoint, in terms of humans. And so I just kind of, it's like with anything, the more you can't unlearn it, right? Like once your eyes are opened, you can't unsee what you've seen. And, I just couldn't, like, I couldn't keep being in the business I love so much. Like, I love fashion. I got into it because I love the way that clothing is an art form to express your personal identity. It's an incredible way for creative people to come up with new ways to, manipulate garments and textures and, to drape them differently on your body. And I think that's so amazing. It gives us such a vehicle to be whoever we want to be. And so, I couldn't just walk away from that. I realized if this is truly what I love, the best thing I can do is to try to make it better, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was like a really tough wake-up call, because it's like your shitty racist uncle that you love, but he's family, but you're like, hey, Uncle Bob, like, you can't talk like this anymore. You can't do this. This isn't acceptable. These are like hard conversations.
It's like for years you're excusing the behavior because that is your uncle. So it's almost ignorance is bliss, right? Like,
Right.
I love him, but after a while, it's like I love him, but I gotta check him at some point, if I want him to be around.
Yeah. And honestly, when you see systems like this, and again, you wake up to what's really happening, you have to check them, because like for me, if I don't check it, like I can't live with myself, right? Like I can't sleep at night. Like I can't jive with that. I can't just like turn a blind eye. So that's where my activism started, from a place of curiosity, like really diving into what's going on here. What does this mean? And then once you realize the problem, it's like, whoa, what can I do about this? And we're going to get into that today, right? But that's kind of how I migrated from like a quote fashion career to a now, more of a sustainable fashion career. I'm a consultant for brands. I'm a consultant for manufacturers who say like, we want to clean up our act. How do we do that? I'm an activist through nonprofit organizations that, kind of guide the way and help consumers understand what's happening, and then also hold brands accountable to make the fashion industry more eco-friendly and more ethical. And, we're going to get into today how, the fashion industry relies on capitalist consumption. And so our power to make change, a lot of people don't understand as consumers how much power we really do have.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to kind of like help people wrap their brains around that in like a totally different way.
I can't wait. Ryan, I always, it's either he introduces me to someone that he wants to bring onto the show and I'm excited, or vice versa. And I think you joined the call when I said I'm excited to learn about this, right? Because if you look online and you try to, and I'm gonna let the viewers know what the topic is in a bit. But if you look at what you want to talk about, there's not much to really research. Like you really have to try to like, because there's a lot of conflicting opinions on what it is, right? And then Ryan and I had two different ideas of what it was.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Before we get to that, let's get to know Rebecca Blake Thompson a little bit more. Also, you said you're an activist and you work for, you help a few nonprofits. Remake.world, you mentioned that to me. Is that one of them?
Yeah, exactly. So I do, for them, I host a monthly, community call that we open. So it'll be on Monday that we open up, to the public, and you can join and you can learn about the current campaigns we're working on. We interview people from inside the industry. We talk to a lot of garment workers, so you can hear firsthand their account, of what it's like on their side. Because, that's part of the problem too, right? Like I'm just another white lady. You don't need me telling the story of what these people are going through. It's important that you hear it in their voice and that you hear it directly from them and their perspective, So we do a lot of that, and we do a lot of just accountability work, kind of saying, here's what's going on with brands. Like our current campaign right now is called Pay Up, #PayUp. Because when COVID-19 hit globally, like really hit, like it obviously started last year, but when it like really hit in early March, globally, a lot of giant fashion brands globally, Marks and Spencer, JCPenney, Walmart, a lot of H&M, like a lot of these guys, they didn't just like cancel future work saying, okay, the market's so uncertain because we don't know who's going to be buying clothes or whatever. They refused to pay for garments that had already been made. So the garment workers already did the work. They already made the clothes. They already put that time in, and these clothes were sitting in their factories waiting to be shipped out. And so far, I mean, we're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars worth. And this campaign specifically is focused in Bangladesh. So this is just the effect in Bangladesh. This doesn't even take into scope the whole globe. And through, through our social activism and through pressuring these brands, we've gotten, brands to be accountable and to agree to pay for, I think we're up to almost $7 billion in orders that they've agreed to pay for. So that kind of gives you an indication of how much is left to do. It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem.
This isn't like billions of dollars worldwide, because obviously it is, but this is specifically in Bangladesh.
Wow,
that's insane. I mean,
that's a bargain. That's a bargain. They're not even asking for all of it. That's just like, hey, we'll settle for this.
for now.
Yeah.
But it goes to show you that your work is still much of it is still ahead of you. But you know, with organizations like the ones you're working with, that's what I consider fighting the good fight, right? I mean, a lot of people, it's like you said, I feel like we're almost ignorant to it. Like I want to wear the latest, you know, fad, and I think it's more important for me to have them rather than really care about where it came from and the fact that, yeah. So I really appreciate you bringing that on. We'll if you have a link for that call, for the community call, we'll definitely plug it and we'll put it on our YouTube as well.
Cool.
Another thing that I wanted to bring up that I saw on your is the sustainable fashion aspect of things. I know we can delve into it a little bit more, but sustainable fashion. My idea of sustainable fashion was just, hey, you know, you're using eco-friendly, you're eco-friendly,
Organic cotton and whatnot.
Yeah. And we're actually going to have someone that's a fashion designer, because we already had a fashion designer before. I wish I would have known about this, or we would have grilled them about it a little bit more. But, you know, and to me, that's what I was getting from it. I didn't get anything else, you know, regarding labor. So talk to me a little bit about what sustainable fashion is for you.
Yeah, total common, you know, perception by the average consumer is that sustainable fashion just means like using organic cotton, using natural dyes, you know, not using chemicals on, you know, through fertilizers onto crops, things like that. And that's definitely important. It's a huge part of it because those toxic chemicals soak into our bodies. They poison, you know, rainwater and groundwater that, you know, people in a lot of these countries drink and bathe in. So don't get me wrong, that's a huge part of it. But a really, really big part of it that people don't think about is the human component, you know, is the ethical component, the human labor. I even want to take a step back because, you know, you and I are fashion people, but a lot of people aren't. So people actually think, or I should say it the other way, people don't realize that every single piece of clothing you own is made by human hands.
Right.
There's absolutely no way to make clothing without a human touching it. It's not a plastic water bottle that can go through a machine, totally automated. Anything that's soft, that's like a flexible good, it moves. So machinery can't properly manipulate it. So everything you've ever worn has been touched by human hands. Wow. So I think a lot of people just subconsciously take humans out of the equation because they just assume that things are automated now and that there's not like people making them, right? Yeah, it's an easy thing to like, you know, and we're going to get into the curiosity, but it's an easy thing to like just kind of subconsciously bypass, right? So it's also a women's issue because the majority of garment workers globally, you know, more than 95% of garment workers globally are women, right? Yeah. And it's also, you know, we're talking about Black Lives Matter right now. It's a Black and brown issue because, again, almost the entire majority of global garment workers are Black and brown women, right? And when we talk about exploitation, we're not just talking about like, you know, sweatshop conditions. When you think about that, that's still very much the norm. We're talking about workers getting paid, you know, very, very little. We're talking about, but it's not just pay. It's that they don't get any sick time. They don't get any maternity leave. They don't get any health benefits. They don't get any overtime. They don't work in sanitary conditions. They don't have bathrooms to go to. They don't have running water. They don't have air conditioning. They don't have heating. And, you know, another really big part of it is that people think that that's what's going on in third world countries, but they don't think that that's what's happening here where I am in Los Angeles. And that could not be further from the truth. In Los Angeles, we don't have a clear understanding of how many garment workers there are because a huge, huge percentage of contracting operations of cut and sew factories in Los Angeles are off the books. They're in the dark. They're totally illegal. But by best estimates, we think that there's a little bit over 45,000 garment workers currently in Los Angeles. A study done in 2018 found that the average garment worker in Los Angeles was making $5.60 an hour at the time when the minimum wage was more than $12 an hour. That's totally normal in Los Angeles. Okay. So when you think that you're buying made in the US and that means ethical, that's not necessarily the case at all.
Don't our labor laws apply? Our labor laws not like, is there a way to circumvent that?
That's the first thing people ask, right? As of 2016, there was, so it's called the Bureau of Field Enforcement. So it's the people, it's the agents that actually go out and inspect the factories and look at these things. In 2016, for the entire county of Los Angeles, how many field agents do you think they had?
I mean, I would hope it's
Wow. I was gonna say 10.
Yeah, I was gonna
be modest.
I'd hope it's like 20, right?
Wow. And the thing is, like you said, they're off the book. So I don't see people bragging like, yeah, I'm a garment thing, because a lot of people don't want it to be known. Wow. It makes sense. I never really
But
thought
the laws, the laws are there.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
There's no oversight.
Yeah.
And in terms of oversight, it's also are these people illegal, right? Because they could also exploit the undocumented workers, right?
That's a huge part of it. I'm so glad you brought that up. So one of the other organizations that I work for is the Garment Workers Center, which is based here in Los Angeles. And threat and intimidation is a huge tactic to get garment workers to accept this pay, because again, it's unknown because it's hard to count, but the estimate is that upwards of 75% of garment workers in Los Angeles are illegal immigrants. So they have no documentation. And under the current administration, it's no fucking secret that there is a very unwelcoming culture towards immigrants. Right. And so what a lot of these factory owners will do is say, if you complain about the pay I'm giving you, or you complain about the wages, I'll report you.
Yeah. Wow.
And now it's
what I was thinking in my head.
Now it's a weapon. It's not like before where it's like, you're not going to do anything. Now it's like, shit, with this administration, like you said, they can definitely get me out of here.
It's a weapon. So it's used against these people to speak up. Unfortunately, most of these workers don't know, and even if they do know, they're still scared. Even if you're of illegal status in the state of California, you are still 100% protected by labor laws, regardless of your citizenship status. But because of the current administration, because of what they see happening to their friends and families, it's still not worth it.
Yeah, it's like
the fear.
Yeah, you can report it, but then ICE, right? Like that's the knee-jerk reaction probably. I can report it, but am I really going to be protected, or is someone's going to call ICE on me because I just ratted myself out essentially?
Yeah, that's the fear. So it's really fucked up, and we're going to get into why you cannot count on. You can't take everything at face value. You as a consumer have a responsibility to ask more questions, to do more work, and we're going to talk about that. But the reality is that most people just don't understand what's actually going on. They think it's an issue of the past, and they think it's an issue that's only happening in third world countries, not right here, now.
I literally told Ryan, I literally told him before we got on the call that that's a third world country issue. I had no idea.
It's crazy. She just said it before. Nobody is like, obviously Rebecca, but I'm saying I can easily admit that what you're telling me right now is stuff I've never heard of before. And it is very ignorant of myself to understand what I'm trying to buy and not understand how this stuff is being made. But wow, like, it really makes you wonder, like, how much worse it can be if there wasn't certain people trying to fix this stuff. Like,
well, it's actually, and that's a great point, it's actually a lot worse than it's ever been.
Right now?
Yeah. And there's a reason for that. There's a lot of reasons for that. But the biggest reason that you could attribute that to is what we call in the fashion industry is, it's been happening probably since the early 80s. I mean, it's very closely related with NAFTA, and we're not going to get into public policy right now, but to just recap it very quickly, it's what's called a race to the bottom. And a race to the bottom means that brands are trying to get to outbid their competitor with the lowest price possible, Well, the problem is if you sell a t-shirt for $10 and I sell it for $9, now another brand has to sell it for $8, now another brand has to sell it for $7, now another brand has to sell it for $6. And who pays the price of that? The garment worker.
Yeah.
The garment worker.
The cost somewhere, so they're gonna get the short end of the stick, because obviously that's the easiest place to cut cost.
I guess is fast fashion exploiting it the most.
Mm-hmm. But there's still a lot of exploitation even within luxury brands. The price does not necessarily dictate the correlation of abuse, not necessarily. You know, yes, the majority of these injustices are happening in the fast fashion industry just due to the pace.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not like a clear way as for a consumer to say this is a bad brand and this is a good brand, because there's a lot of other factors that go into it. But the race to the bottom, while being offered to us as consumers by these brands, is really driven by consumers, because they want to pay less and less and less. And it's not, you know, we're going to talk about this too. It's not necessarily their fault. We're living within a society where, you know, our paycheck isn't keeping up with how much our rent goes up. Our paycheck isn't keeping up with how much groceries go up. Our paycheck isn't keeping up with how much these bills go up. So we want to pay less and less. But, you know, if you paid $10 for a fucking t-shirt and there was a farmer that grew the cotton and somebody harvested it and somebody sorted it, and then it got sent to a spinning mill and somebody spun it into yarn, and then it got sent to a textile mill and somebody spun that yarn into cloth, and then that cloth got sent somewhere to be dyed, and then that dyed cloth got sent to a factory to be cut, and then that cut cloth got sent to a garment worker to sew, and then it got sent to a retail store to sit on the floor where they pay the rent and the lights and the salespeople and the cash registers and the advertising, and then you buy it for $10. Where the fuck do you think all that money went? Like, it's just not real. It's not. So what we call it is the true cost of a garment. You know, $10 is not the true cost of a garment. And the only plate, you think that the fashion, you think H&M's going to give up their profit margin? The only way you can take the money, you can save the money and reduce that cost is by paying your workers less. That's the only way.
Yeah, they're the
only way.
That's the disposable aspect of this whole process, right?
Or having less people doing the job, paying less, and now people are overworked, and now at the cost of us paying less, people are losing lives potentially and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is sickening, but we'll definitely get into a little bit more.
There's hope. Don't worry. It's not all doom and gloom. I would be able to wake up every day if there wasn't hope, right?
Yeah. The fact that you're smiling gives me hope, because I know that you're the ones in the front line. So I trust.
There's hope.
One last thing that I saw, and this is a perfect segue to the topic, is that your profile picture has vote on it. One common theme on your profile is vote. Those 4 letters, I see it everywhere on your page. So before we get into it, if you want to tell us the importance of just voting before we even get into the topic, because I see this everywhere on your page. So what does voting mean to Rebecca?
Yeah, voting, it's so important. And there's more than one way you can do it, right? We're going to talk about that. Voting doesn't just mean like casting your ballot, right?
Yeah.
A lot. So I talk about it in different ways, but if we're going to talk about like casting your ballot, I think, you know, it's no secret that millennials are the lowest, you know, the ones that show up to the poll in the lowest percentages, right? And the reason for that is that millennials think that their vote doesn't matter. Okay. Older people, senior citizens, you know, our parents' age, overwhelmingly, their voter registration numbers and their voter attendance is high. Well, old people tend to be pretty conservative. So, you know, it's easy for them to tip the scales because their generation is overwhelmingly more conservative and their voter turnout is extremely high. So young people will say, well, what fucking difference does it make? I'm one vote. You know, why? What does it matter? Well, you can see, especially from a lot of things that are going on with Black Lives Movement, that a lot of the decisions that affect your daily life are happening in a hyper local way. If you don't want to vote for the president because you don't want to choose between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I get that. But the most important I still want you to vote. But the most important, I get it's a tough decision to make. It's not a tough decision, but anyways, the most important the most impact you can have is at the hyper local level, electing district attorneys, judges, superior court judges, electing, your mayor, electing, the people that, we've seen with, so taking it back to Black Lives Matter, a lot of the cases for criminals that are brought to trial, are decided by district attorneys. And you can elect a lot of these people that are in the position to hold the perpetrators accountable and to free innocent people against charges that should never have been filed, So when people say they want to make a difference, they don't realize like how important it is to vote in these local elections. And look, like, I'm not one to ever judge or preach. I even was not didn't fully understand the extent to this, and still until I started doing a lot of research because of the Black Lives Matter movement, seeing how these hyper local decisions are made. And so to me, vote means make your voice heard to influence the people who are in power and to affect who gets the power. Okay. And that's going to translate to what we're talking about. But vote means make your voice heard and to give power to the people you want to have power and to take power away from the people that you don't want to have power.
So it's not necessarily just zooming out and voting in this election, right? And even the Senate, right? Like, people think that, okay, I voted for my senator, I'm done. Like, it's zooming in, getting into your own community. Like, why are you worrying about New Jersey as a whole when your city, like if I live in New Jersey, when your city, for instance, you don't vote in any of the local elections, right? So that's a great point. And now that brings us to the topic that you brought up. And again, Ryan and I are trying to wrap our brains around it because there's so many different ways that we can interpret it. And the way you put it so eloquently was voting with, what the fuck does voting with your wallet mean? And I guess in today's social climate is especially important. And I wanted you to educate us on that because we did have questions. Now, before you get into it, I wanted to tell you what voting with your wallet meant to me initially without doing any research, and how maybe all of us are a bit ignorant to what the truth is behind it. To me, voting with your wallet was, I'm a Latino small business owner, and I have this conservative president with his agenda geared more towards businesses. Now I'm going to vote for him because I feel like our ideologies align, right? That he's gonna give me more cuts and that's how I felt it was, right? Like, I'm gonna support him. I'm gonna really sacrifice a lot of my morals. Wrong. And I'm just gonna vote for him because I feel like he's gonna put the most money in my wallet. So that's what I felt like that was, and I think Ryan had a different interpretation.
Oh, that's exact. When you initially told me about it, I've heard of the concept. It just making common sense of it is exactly what you were saying. Like, that's just on the surface, though. I know Rebecca is gonna explain it on a different level, but on the surface, that's what I thought it was as well. Like, hey, I'm voting. I'm making this vote because it's going to financially help me as a person, as an individual. And as selfish as that might sound, that's how people do it. Because they don't think of anything else besides money. Money is, I guess they think is they can solve everything with it. So,
yeah.
Well, it's interesting because people tend to be polarized. They tend to either think that like they're helpless and it doesn't matter how they spend their money because it doesn't make a difference, or they tend to think that money gives them a lot of power. And, it really, like any tool, it just depends on how you use it, right? So what the fuck does it mean to vote with your wallet? So when we say in the sustainable fashion space, kind of in my world, when we say vote with your wallet, on the surface, that means, okay, well, I'm going to shop with ethical, eco-friendly brands because I'm putting more fuel to their fire, right? Like I'm ensuring that their garment workers are paid well. I'm ensuring that, I'm purchasing, organic, non-toxic fabrics. And so that's part of it, right? That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is you as a consumer are showing people the kind of things that you value. So if I shop from certain types of brands, whether they're, they're Black owned, like you said, one, like, are they in line with who I am, who I identify with? Do I shop from only female owned businesses? Do I shop from only minority owned businesses? Do I shop from, only vegan owned businesses, whatever, right? Like, there's a way to kind of choose to spend your dollars to support the kind of people that you believe in. You can vote to shop with an organization, spend your money with them because they support a philanthropy or a cause that you believe in, right? And they donate a huge percent of their profits to it. But one part of voting with your wallet, that people don't think about is that when you do choose where you want to spend your dollars, you and I, and probably most of the people watching this call, have a finite amount of money. We don't have billions of dollars, so it's not like we have an endless supply of cash. So when we're choosing where to spend our money, that means that we're not spending it somewhere else. Like, just because we choose to buy the t-shirt from this place doesn't mean we're still going to buy the t-shirt from the other place. It means we made a choice between the two, and we just chose the more ethical or the more eco-friendly one, or the one that was owned by whoever we wanted to support. So the other side of the coin is that you're fueling the fire that you want to support, and you're growing that cause, but you're also starving the causes that you don't want to support. You're taking money away from the people that you don't want to fuel. And another big part of this is that, when people talk about sustainable fashion, the first thing that most people will say is that it's just too expensive. It's way too expensive. So two parts of that. One is the true cost, which we talked about, right? Like, this is actually, if you want to pay the people who are farming the cotton and dyeing it and weaving it and sewing it their worth, then this is what it costs. But there are efficiencies to be had. It should still be less, but it's not, because not enough people buy it. So think about this. Resources, you got supply and demand. So if there's a huge supply, but nobody wants to buy it, the price drops. It's not worth anything. If there's a teeny tiny supply and a huge demand, the price is going to be astronomical. Well, look at that from a sustainable fashion perspective. If everyone on the planet was demanding organic cotton, then toxic, fertilized, chemical cotton would go away because nobody wants it. So nobody's buying it. And the cost of organic cotton would plummet. It would be super affordable. If, everybody wanted to use natural dyes, or all these little things you could get into. The reason that a lot of these things that go into the supply chain in sustainable fashion are still so expensive is because there's not enough people that are contributing to that part of the economy. So if more and more consumers purchase sustainable fashion, it's going to drive the price down. So again, if you have, if you're in a privileged position, and I get that a lot of people aren't. If you're in a privileged position to be able to decide to pay $25 for a t-shirt or $5 for a t-shirt, and you can make that choice, you're adding to, you're fueling the good fire and you're squelching the negative fire. Now, just as a side note, for people who say, and I totally get this, that sustainable fashion is only for wealthy people and skinny white people, I get that the wrong message has been put out. If anyone were to say, okay, I don't have any money, but I do want to be sustainable, and they want a tip, buy secondhand, buy something used. The best thing you can do is to just buy things vintage, thrift them, swap them, trade them, rent them, borrow them. Buy something secondhand, and that's totally affordable. Now, if you're ready to go deep, I'm going to get with you on what the fuck it really means to vote with your wallet, because this was just an intro, and I'm going to tell you what it really means, okay?
I got a couple of questions just so I can wrap my brain. That was a lot.
I love
it. And I appreciate I'm smarter already, and this is one of the main reasons I love this show. It makes sense to me now, and obviously I understand it, but hearing it, right? I think everybody's like, oh, I know. But until you hear it, and I can't wait for people to listen to this episode, when you actually hear not only what you're saying, but the way it is explained, it makes complete sense, right? If the reason they can make that shirt so cheap is because a lot of people want cheap shirts, like you're saying. And this organic cotton and all the stuff that's actually better for us will be more accessible if more people bought it, because now that allows the people who make that to drop. right? So now it's like, oh, I can charge the same for organic cotton as for regular cotton because now we're at the same level. We're at the same level now. We have the same chance to compete in a sense of it doesn't hurt us to make this, and it's better for the like system in general. So now that's dope. That's dope to hear. Wow, my mind is like.
Just wait. I'm about to drop some more bombs on you. All right. So here's where it takes it to another level. Okay. The majority of fashion brands, the majority brands you recognize, brands anyone would recognize, are publicly owned brands. You can buy stock in them. They have shareholders. They have, stakeholders, which means they have to have a board, right? It means they have to have a CEO. They have a whole C-suite. They've got CEOs, CFOs, COOs. They got all the C-suite, right? The majority of brands, of mega fashion brands, are of this status. They're public brands. And the majority of their CEOs are white men. The majority of their boards are white men. The majority of their stockholders are white men. So when you purchase clothing from one of these mega fashion brands, people think, oh, it's the big deal. Like, I bought the t-shirt, just a couple dollars here, just a couple dollars there. I posted this on my Instagram the other day. Oh, it's just one t-shirt, said 8 billion people. When you purchase from these brands, you're sending that money up the supply chain, not down. You're paying out dividends to their shareholders. You're paying that CEO a bonus of $22 million every quarter. You're paying that board payouts. And the majority of contributions to elected candidates comes from wealthy white men. So when you shop from these brands and you make that CEO richer and you make the board richer and you make those shareholders richer, they go and they take their millions of dollars and they give them to candidates, whether you fucking like them or not. Yeah. And the reality is that they put that money into those candidates' pockets, and they put that money into PACs, political action committees, that lobby for laws and regulations that favor their business, their exploitation, their profit, and most likely do not favor you as a citizen. So when you give your money to these brands, it's not just a fucking t-shirt. Inadvertently, you're contributing to politicians, to lobbying, to lawmaking that you have zero control over. So you're voting whether you like it or not, because that's where the money's going. So that is so important, and people don't get that.
No, I never thought about it that way, that I'm casting a vote every time I spend money on my shirt because I haven't done my research. And then you do see, like, sometimes they expose like some of the corporations that are involved in these PACs that you're referencing, and I've seen it. Like Twitter, there are people that go out and they'll say, well, this is where you're spending your money, but they do it mostly with their fast food chains, for instance, right? Like, if you go buy from this company donated X amount to the super PAC for the GOP or for whoever. I never thought about it that, just because I don't want to take time to see the practices of this specific company when it comes to manufacturing, or when it comes to like how this shirt is produced, or from the top to bottom, how responsible the company is, I'm casting a vote. And Tam, that just blew my mind, because you just really like you just schooled me on what voting with your wallet is, and we just started this topic.
People don't think about it. People don't make the connection. But the reality is your money's going somewhere and somebody's going to use it. But when you spend it with a brand and you have no idea what their values are, you have no idea who their CEO is, what their real personal history is in real life, who they're friends with, who they shake hands with, who they do favors for, whose campaigns they support. If you're blindly spending money with a brand, you're adding fuel to their fire. You just have no say in it. You're most likely adding fuel to fire against yourself. By giving them your money, you're most likely putting money in the hands of somebody who's going to use it to take power away from you.
And the worst part is that it's not going to affect them, the money that they put in, the millions of dollars, because that's a write-off for them. So not only did you help give them the fuel to that fire, you're also helping them with with their tax write-offs at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Finger snaps for Rebecca so far.
You know, it's like we said at the beginning, like it's a fucking bitch, because you learn something you can't unlearn. But like anything, as a human being, you know, as a decent human citizen of this world, once you know, you have a responsibility to do something about it. You just can't unlearn, you can't unsee, you can't unknow. And the problem is that most people don't go this far because they don't want to know, because knowing requires more work. Knowing requires that you're active, that you're awake, that you're not sleepwalking, that you're not taking the easiest route, that you're not taking the cheapest route, that, you know, it requires that you're doing research, that you're looking into things. And I fucking get it. I get that that's work, you know, and the good news about that is, you know, one of the things that would really help our planet, you know, from an ecological standpoint, is to drastically reduce the rate of consumption. So that's a positive side effect to me. If you don't want to do the work, and that means you're just going to buy less shit because you don't want to spend the time researching, that's fine too. Like, I'm okay with that, you know, like, if that just means like, oh, I'll just shop less.
Yeah, yeah. At least you're trying to like stop fueling the evil, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, then that has great side effects too. Just saying, oh fuck, man, I need to buy a pair of socks, but I don't feel like researching it, so fuck it, I'll just do it later. Great. That has a good effect too. That's great. The planet just breathed a sigh of relief. Like, we can't make all this stuff. We can't consume all this stuff. So that's fine. If you don't feel like doing the research, so you go buy something secondhand, awesome, super great. That's a great side effect, you know, but try, you know, and I get it. There's emergencies, there's tight situations. You got a kid going to school and you forgot to buy, you know, I get it. There's, you know, I don't put unrealistic expectations, and I put zero judgment on anyone, but try to take this new knowledge and incorporate it as much as you possibly can, because anytime you do incorporate it, it will have an impact. It will make a difference, you know, and you think it's only a few dollars here, a few dollars there, but it's only a few dollars here, a few dollars there, said 8 billion people. And if everybody quit saying my vote doesn't matter, if everybody quit saying my purchases don't matter, we could change the fucking planet overnight. If people stop saying it doesn't matter, like, it matters. It really matters. Like, it really, really matters. And if you're going to consume these things in your body, in your mind, on your body, you just have a responsibility to be aware of what you're consuming, you know? You wouldn't, if somebody handed you a fucking pill and said, put this in your mouth, you wouldn't just be like, okay. You'd be like, what the fuck is this? You know, like, you got to do your research.
Yeah.
Why is it any different with like, hey, spend your money on this brand? You don't know what they're doing. We're like, okay, like, it's no different, you know, like, we need to think about that. Like,
yeah. So what's happening is we have these celebrities who have endorsement contracts that they'll say, here, take this pill because I'm taking it. Now you're gonna trust that celebrity, so you're gonna take the pill. This happens with all the brands, right? So we're not, and we don't even have to just talk about fashion at this point, right? If we want to, now this transcends fashion. This goes to everything you're consuming and everything you're buying. So voting with your wallet in mind, and it goes down to how selfish are you that you're not willing to just take a little bit of time to make sure you're doing the right thing with the money you're spending, right?
I mean, I don't want to judge, right? Because it's like, you know, a lot of people are waking up to this for the first time, right? So there's going to be like an initial shock, like, you have to absorb this, like, whoa, this is a lot of information to absorb. And I'm going to give you, in my challenge, I'm going to give you some tips, you know, for how to make this like more digestible. But no judgment, but like,
I don't want to say, I don't want selfishness to come off as like judgmental, right? But
yeah,
what I
yeah,
feel like is that someone will hear this and say, like you said, because it's selfish to say, well, I'm just one person, right? Because you said 8 billion times. So at what point do you just recalibrate that mindset and say, I am one of that 8 billion, so I, like you said, I matter, right? So rather than you just run into the mall right away and going to get that piece of clothing that you so long for, how long does it actually take an average human being to just research where it's coming from? It doesn't. I wouldn't imagine it takes a long time.
I mean, it depends how deep you want to go. If you're going to do the minimal work, it takes 30 fucking seconds to go to a brand, go to their website, go to the About Us section. If you don't see a human being on that page, if it's just like, oh, we love this, we love that, like, a lot of times that's an indication that it's just a giant corporation that doesn't, have particular values or anything behind. If you see a face that this is our founder, meet our team, if they show pictures of their employees, if they link to the causes that they support, if they talk about being a female-owned business, a Black-owned business, a Latino-owned business, if they talk about being, any of those things, and that's a cause that you align with, that took 30 seconds for you to look at their About Us page and understand who they are and where they came from. And that's like, if you want to do the bare minimum, that's still a lot, right? Like, that's still great. Now, a lot of brands go through greenwashing. They use greenwashing, what we call in the industry greenwashing, as a marketing tactic, which ultimately means trying to appear more eco-friendly or more sustainable than they really are. So if you want to get deep and do the kind of research and investigation that I do, yeah, you got to look a lot deeper. But I would challenge, this isn't the challenge, but I would encourage people to like at least start with their values, of like who you want to support, the kind of things that you believe in, who you want to, and then if you're willing, then you can go a layer deeper to say, where are they sourcing their materials? What are they made out of? What are they paying their garment workers? Do they show transparency into their factories and what their workers are getting paid? Are they certified by different organizations like Blue Sign or Oecotex or Fair Trade, or all of these certifications you can get that kind of help consumers understand what you're all about? Sure, you can go real deep, even, once they do have those certifications. There's still more questions you can ask, but at the bare minimum, it takes 30 seconds to look at their website and see who are they.
Okay, so we have this aspect of voting with your wallet. I think it's just if you're going to spend your money, maybe take a little more time, right? And I know your challenge is going to help us maybe find those resources that are available, and how to maybe slow down all of this knowledge that we've just learned, like how to kind of put it together. My mind is blown right now, and I want to like throw all of my clothes away or donate them. So I feel like
the most sustainable clothing you can wear is the clothing that's already in your closet.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
And that's crazy. As I got older, I've gone to like I'm like I wouldn't call myself a minimalist, but I have minimalist characteristics where it's just like I've watched documentaries and I've watched stuff just because I understand the less I spend, and like you said, like thrifting or recycle or hand-me-downs and stuff like that. Like everything that I don't wear anymore is, a lot of people throw that stuff away. Like for me, I'm lucky enough to have nephews and stuff that I can hand that stuff down to them. Like, hey, look, this doesn't fit me anymore. Not really my style anymore, but what you might want to use this. But like you said, like unconsciously, that's just me as a person. Like I don't like wasting stuff. There's value to everything I buy, and not value in just being cheap. And is it worth it? Is it worth it? But now I have to challenge myself a bit more. And after I hear your challenge, I'll be able to learn more. But it's more than just value. Is it ethical? Is a dollar that I'm spending helping the greater cause than just whatever it is right now?
Yeah.
I didn't think of it like that before. I'm gonna be completely honest.
And I don't know if it really ties into like voting with your wallet, but I feel like it because in fashion there's a lot of waste. And I've learned a lot about upcycling. There's some companies that do that, right? Again, that's one of those companies that you really want to be like, oh yeah, I want to shop from there. But there's companies that are even more wasteful, and I wanted to see what the psychology was behind it, if maybe you understood. There's a company that I heard of. I'm not going to name it, but I know someone that worked for this company, and they said that whatever they don't sell, right? There's companies that do sample sales. There's companies that go to outlets, right? That whatever they don't sell for the season goes to an outlet. There's a company that I heard of, and I think a lot of these luxury brands do this, that whatever they don't sell, they send it to one place and they burn it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a common practice? If that is, or like, what's the psychology behind that? I'm not trying to like get you to like diagnose some like someone's
Well, I
mind.
can tell you exactly why they do it.
Oh, so
It's not super common. It only happens with luxury brands because go back to what we talked about, supply and demand and exclusivity.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Burberry's biggest fear when they got caught for burning over $11 million, I think it was, worth of product, which, you know, for them might not be that much, but the thought is that if this stuff trickles down, if it gets discounted, if it gets marked down, if it makes it into more people's hands, then it devalues the brand. It makes the brand worth less. So if we can maintain exclusivity and make this product really hard to get, it retains its value. So they burned it.
So they rather burn it than give it to people who actually need it, in fear of, hey, oh, everybody's wearing Burberry now. Like,
So there's no,
Yeah.
there's no legislation to guard against that, or is it because these corporations are putting money in the right people's pockets that
There's no legislation against that. It depends on the country where it's happening. Most likely, and I knew of this happening and I didn't research into where it was burned, but most likely they just had it burned in a country that didn't have that regulation. They paid someone to do it for them.
Wow. Okay. Now I didn't mean to
they
hide.
don't get in trouble from it. They just like outsource it. They're like, oh, that's not us. They kind of, like you said, they hide it. Everything's under the table. Wow.
If it's exploitive in any way, if it's destructive in any way, if it's toxic in any way, it's outsourced because they don't want to deal with it. It's
They don't wanna
sent
get
to somebody
blamed.
else to deal with the negative effects.
Yeah, and they
They probably pay a premium to these people because they're like, hey, if you get in trouble, hey, that's the chance you're getting. But we're paying you for it.
And they PR the shit out of it anyway. They know how to. They're spinsters. They know how to spin this shit like so that it doesn't fall back on them. I didn't mean to like hijack the convo with this.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Meanwhile, we're just talking about too, and what you're saying, just like blows my mind even more. Like the fact that not only are some companies just burning stuff and just doing that, but the fact that they have outlets alone where they're selling stuff at cheaper costs or cheaper, it's more valuable or it's on sale, as they try to like trick us to think it, they still make enough money that's how much they're abusing the people who are making this stuff.
Yeah, stuff in outlets it's been 20, 30 years since the things in outlets were actually full price at one point. The 99% of the product in outlets nowadays was made for the outlet.
Yeah, like it was made to go on sale.
It was literally made to go straight to the outlet and pretend that it used to cost more and they sell it for less.
Yeah. Wow.
My life is a lie, man.
Wow. What the?
We could have a lot more conversations, but I only have 20 minutes, so I want to keep us on track for voting.
Right, you can jump right back into it.
Go for
All
it.
right. So another way that you vote with your wallet, and this is really important, right? This is super important because this is the only way that we're going to have an impact, like truly impactful change, is with your voice. Okay. And I'm going to get to this, but specifically, I mean your voice in social media, your voice where your voice is heard, unless you like have unless people go to see you give TED Talks or you speak at colleges. Most of our voices, like you guys, your voice is on YouTube and on Instagram. A lot of people's voices is on Facebook. It's on TikTok. It's wherever they choose to, LinkedIn, wherever they choose to have their voice and speak, what's going on with them. So one way that we cast our vote is we use our voice to talk about who we are buying from and why, okay? So what this does is it affects other people, and it's not necessarily a vote per se, but if I can get more people to buy from this brand, then they're casting their vote with their dollars. So this is kind of an indirect way. This is more about like using your voice to to help other people vote with their wallet. So once you realize you have the responsibility to look into who you're purchasing from and what they're all about and where the money's going, the next step, the next responsibility you have is to share that information. Make it easier for people who don't want to do the research. Make it easier for somebody to just say, oh, that's a sweet shirt. Where'd you get it? Well, if you already bought it from somewhere ethical and you tell them to get it and then they go get it, great. You just got them to vote with their wallet, whether they know it or not, okay? Mm-hmm. So I want to talk to you about this campaign that's really important to me. And it was started by a grad school colleague of mine. And her Instagram handle, and I'll give you all this in writing so you can post it, but her Instagram handle is Toby with an I, TOBI, WITHANEYE. And the hashtag is buy and amplify. And it's a 6-week challenge to buy from Black-owned businesses and then to amplify your purchase. So to talk about it. So to do the research into buying from businesses that are Black-owned. If you're choosing, you've got a product to purchase, fine, do the research instead of just buying it on Amazon or wherever, do the research, find a Black-owned business that offers that product, buy it from them, and then share the information on social media. So this dope hoodie that I'm wearing.
The first thing I asked her about was that hoodie. The hoodie is dope. I love it.
So I'm vegan, and this hoodie was purchased from a Black-owned vegan business in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I'm from. So the other cool thing about doing your research is I chose to purchase it from a Black-owned business to keep my money out of a white-owned business and give it to a Black-owned business. I chose to support values I believe in, which is veganism. And then I contributed to a local economy that means a lot to me. My parents still live in Atlanta, so I contributed to that local economy. And there's a meme going around on social media right now that I saw that it's like these two girls and it's like a security cam shot. And these two girls are standing behind the cash register and the customer makes a purchase and then walks out. And the girls jump down under the counter and they do this secret handshake, ritual dance. And it was your purchase from a small business means so much more than you know. So for these small businesses, every time they get a purchase, they do a dance. That means a lot to them. Amazon doesn't give a fuck every time they make purchases every millisecond of every second of every day, right? But when you choose to purchase from a small business, that has a huge impact. Now this was such sweet timing because I just got this morning right before this call. So I was fingers crossed because I bought it a week ago or something. But next up on Instagram, you're going to see me amplify it. So I'm going to talk about who is this brand? What are my values? And then for the people that follow me, it's that much easier. I'm going to include the handle. I'm going to include links to the business. And then all they got to do is click on it and buy from their website. Done, right? Nobody had to do any research, but if they see it and they like it, I've done their research for them. So part of our responsibility as consumers is to spread that message. When we do the work, make it easier for people who don't want to do the work, right? So buy and amplify, be conscious about who you're buying from, and then amplify the people that are doing the right thing, because the biggest impact you can have is to help those businesses grow. And in turn, it's going to help you, because we talked about that. When ethical fashion increases in its reach and, sustainable fashion increases in its reach, it's going to be more affordable for all of us. And, the brands are going to, respond to, so the thing is here's another way that people don't realize that voting with your wallet matters is consumers have the power to put brands out of business. Because if you tell a brand, I'm not going to buy from you because of XYZ, guess what? They're going to change because they want your fucking money. They want to stay in business. So if you say, I'm not going to buy from you because you only sell yellow t-shirts and I hate yellow, then the brand's going to make some red t-shirts and some blue t-shirts and some green t-shirts. They're going to make whatever consumers buy. That's the bottom line. They will make whatever sells. So if you say, I'm not going to buy from you, that shit doesn't sell with me, and you choose what does sell with you, then you can put bad brands out of business, or you can get those brands that have shady practices to change their practices and change their product. I don't know the statistics, so I don't want to butcher it, but it has to do with the concentration of organic produce. Organic produce used to be like this much of what was stocked in grocery stores, and then consumers wanted more and more and more of it. So now conventional produce is less and organic produce takes up more of the shelf. So that means that in the world, there's less pesticides out there. There's less, toxic water runoff just because people are buying more organic produce. So the same thing is going to happen in fashion. Those farmers were selling conventional produce and their sales dropped because the consumer demand was for organic. So they switched their farming to organic. Everybody wins, right? And organic produce used to be a lot more expensive. Now it's more affordable because there's more of it,
Affordable now.
So
it's like a rarity at first. It's like, oh my God, organic. And they had to charge so much because like what you said earlier, the demand for it was less. So they had to charge more. But now with the demand being up more and more people are spending towards it, they can afford to be less and everybody can enjoy it. That makes complete sense.
Yeah. So it's not just about, we never want people to feel that the weight of the world is on their shoulders and that every purchase they have to make has to be perfect and that they have to research for 3 hours before they'll click buy from a brand. But if we could all just do a little bit of research, if we could all just make an effort to share about brands that are doing the right thing. And you said this one, this doesn't apply to fashion. This applies to everything we consume as consumers. If we're paying money for it, that money is going somewhere, and that money is supporting a business or not. And that money is giving someone power or not. That money is increasing the demand for that type of product or not. So it doesn't matter the category. Fashion is my expertise, but this applies to all products anywhere.
You feel like, so do you feel like just because like we have a responsibility to vote, when we're doing this and doing our research, let's say I go out and research and I find a local company that, it meets all the criteria for me to feel better with where my money is going. Do you feel like it's now my responsibility the same way to amplify it and let people know I got this? This was great. The company was great. And this is who they are right here. And so I feel like I have just as much responsibility as I do to just actually go to the ballot and vote.
I mean, I think that going to the ballot to vote, it like, how often do you have to do that? Right? Like a couple times a year, if you're voting in local elections, like it literally takes you 5 fucking minutes to fill out if you're fortunate enough to live in a state where you can mail in your vote, obviously do that. It takes 5 minutes. If you live in a state where you have to go stand in line, then you're standing in line 1 day or 2 days out of the year. Like that's the least you could do. So this is more of a responsibility in that this is like an everyday kind of thing. But that's also why I want people to understand that, the expectation is not like once your eyes are open to this to suddenly be perfect. Another thing that we say a lot in sustainable fashion is #start somewhere. So just like start wherever you are. Just start wherever you are. Don't start with perfection. Don't start with throwing away everything in your closet only to buy new shit. That's not good for anybody. Like, just start wherever you are with whatever decisions you have control over and you can make. Don't beat yourself up for all of the, mindless product that's already in your house, but just start where you are and with the bandwidth that you have, and it's a luxury. If you can do that, that's a luxury, because I totally get that a lot of people can't. But if those of us that do have the luxury to spend a few minutes researching, that can choose where our dollars are spent, if those of us that did have the ability to do that, did that, it would have a huge, huge impact, like monumental.
And what we're doing as a result, when we're sharing and amplifying and everybody's like educating themselves on where they should be spending their dollars, now we're building a community. And that's how, right? So it starts off with just a few sources, and now it becomes like, oh, everywhere I go, it's in my face. I know where to go. And the goal is long term that eventually I fish less for those communities because they're available to me.
It's gonna become common.
Yeah.
And another great way, you know, to quote, amplify a business, if you purchase from them, like write them a good Yelp review, write them a good Google review. Like if they're an ethical business, they live off of those reviews. So like, if you don't want to, if it doesn't make sense to like blast out a tire shop on Instagram because they gave you good tires, but they're locally owned, they're minority owned, like, you know that they're a good business, like just give them a good review. That really helps them, you know, and like that's another way to like fuel the good fire. You know, there's a lot of ways you can use your voice. There's a lot of ways you can vote. And they take the form of money. They take the form of an actual ballot. They take the form of a social media post. They take the form of a Yelp review. Like, you know, we need to open our minds to the fact that our responsibility is not just to show up and vote, you know, a couple times a year. Like with every action we're taking, we are casting a vote in some way. And we need to like get out of the box of what voting means and really just understand that it does include all of those things, which then gives us the opportunity to be voting constantly, you know, with every decision we make.
Yeah. So basically, it's if you go and cast a vote, but the rest of the year your spending is almost irresponsible, then it's just a symbolic gesture what you're doing, because really you're probably doing more harm by spending your money throughout the year.
You're probably voting against yourself,
yeah,
honestly.
So you're probably better off not even voting at that point. I mean, you should vote, obviously, but
it's a contradiction.
But don't make it oxymoronic, right? Like make sure that all of that lines up so that now your vote made an impact because the entire year you've been backing that specific vote.
Yep.
Wow, I just learned. I actually learned something.
That just happened.
Are you having like webinars or?
No, you're my webinar. This YouTube video is my webinar.
Amazing. So do you have anything else to add before we get into our Talk Down challenge?
I mean, there's always more ways to go, but like I don't ever want to overwhelm people, right? So we could do another talk in the future, but it's important that like you just, you know, for anyone who's watching, that you just kind of sit with this information, you know, like sit with this and what does this mean? And
start somewhere.
And start somewhere, right?
Love that.
Like just sit with this for a minute, because there's always more. There's always more, you know, but just start with this, sit with this, you know.
Anyone that's viewing this, is it okay if they saw your Instagram hashtag, if they could reach out?
Please. Yeah, please engage with me there. Ask me for recommendations, ask me for advice, join our community calls. Like, you know, the burden to learn is on yourself. You got to educate yourself. Nobody's going to educate you for, you know, nobody's going to be like, hey, can I teach you about this? You got to do the work. So yeah, reach out, ask questions. I'm all about that.
And on those community calls, it's like a Zoom call, or is it? Okay. All right. So you'll give us that information. So we'll put on this. All right. Perfect. So I guess this is the perfect moment for us to get into our Talk Down challenge.
Nice.
Take it away.
Nice. I would like to, I'm about to blow your mind here. I would like to start our challenge. I'm going to do a little toast.
Hey, oh my God, Dominican Mama Juana, let's go. Love it.
You gave me this bottle.
Did I?
You gave me this bottle. It's almost gone.
No, but you can, the beauty of that is you can cure it and you can just keep using it.
Well, the liquid's down to here.
No, so the beauty of that, let me school you before you do the Talk Down challenge, is once it starts wasting out, you put some red wine in it, right? Then you dump it out, then you put a little bit of honey, and then you put whatever rum you want in it and let it sit like in a closet somewhere for like a year, and it's back to new. You can
I'm gonna give you my challenge.
Yes. Cheers. I love it.
All right, here's my challenge, right?
Okay.
And it's not going to be too much. It's not going to be overwhelming. Everyone can do this and has to do this.
Okay.
My challenge to you is to be curious. Ask questions, not just about who you're voting for and where you're shopping. Be a curious human being. Want to know more. Want to understand. Want to learn. Want to see what's really going on. And so my challenge for you is, you can't do it with every decision, right? Like that's impossible. Sometimes I just have to like feed the kid or something, peanut butter and jelly, right? But be curious with the decisions that you make over the next week, just 7 days, before you make any decision that is not brushing your teeth, but like actually consuming something, purchasing something, saying a message on social media. Ask yourself a question about it. Ask yourself to dig a little bit deeper. Ask yourself, what else can I learn here before I make this post, before I buy this product, before I say this thing, before I put on this clothing, before I choose this over that. Be curious and ask yourself, what else can I learn here? Because I think that if we all took an attitude of curiosity to everything we do, the effect is going to be, it's going to be so amplified, and it's going to be so profound, because the more you know, the more you know, and the more you know, the more you want to know. And then you learn more, and then you learn more, and then you learn more, and then you learn more. So if we could all, and you know what I love about being curious is it's not intimidating. It's not some ultimatum, like I got to lose 15 pounds. I got to journal every day for 15 minutes. I got to do this. Just be curious. Just open your mind to asking more questions and being curious about the world around you and how things work and how they're connected and where they come from and how did they get here. You know, one of the reasons that people don't embrace veganism more is because we don't have to slaughter our own fucking meat. If we had to like hang a cow and gut a chicken and do all this stuff, people would be like, nah. But we're removed. We're completely removed. If we saw the women making our clothes, if we saw that they couldn't go to the bathroom, if we saw how they were bent over and working at the sewing machines for 16 hours a day for a couple dollars, if we saw how their families lived, we'd be like, nah, but we don't see it. Yeah. And the only reason we don't see it is because we don't ask questions. Yeah. So be curious. That's my challenge to you guys. For the next 7 days, how can you be curious about every action you take? It's really going to lead you on a journey. It really is going to take you somewhere. And I don't know where it's going to take you because that's unique to you, but it's going to take you somewhere.
Rebecca, and I hope everyone here takes that challenge. And if you want to ask any questions or drop any comments below, please let us know. We're more than willing to have these conversations with you. I definitely am going to take that challenge, and I'm going to start it with what you said. I'm going to start somewhere, and I'm going to start small. For the next 7 days, I'll definitely take that challenge. I'm sure Ryan will too, because I already see him thinking of where he could start. But Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this was a schooling session, and I knew it was going to be like this, and I'm excited to go back and watch this episode, and I'm excited to actually put it out live. Everyone, make sure you go out and follow Rebecca, follow what she does. It's a great movement. Follow everyone that she tells you to follow, because not only because she said so, but because we said so. We got her back. The episode is over, but the conversation continues.
Make sure you subscribe below. Drop us comments, like you said. Follow everybody we suggest, like Juan said. And if you got this far, we appreciate you, man. These conversations are very, very fun for us. I look forward to every single one, whether I know the person or I don't, because like Rebecca said, I am curious to learn more about myself, more about the world, and become the best version of myself that I can be. So as always, tell a friend to tell her friend to tell all of their friends to follow us, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Talk Down. Take care, guys.
Take care.
They let it talk down when I'm not around, yeah. It's only tied down when I'm out of town, no. I don't trust many when I'm in the city. I've never been a shooter, but I keep them with me. Watch them.